I wasn't searching for anything. Not answers, not meaning, not history, just quiet. It was one of those soft, gray days in northern Italy, when the world seems to hold its breath. A day when the light is diffused, gentle, and the sounds are muffled to a low hum. I had wandered into a small museum off the main path. No lines, no guides, no rush. Just old walls, dusty glass cases, and the deep, comforting hum of silence. I move without direction, my footsteps echoing faintly on the marble floor. I stopped here and there to glance at faded paintings of anonymous saints and ancient tools whose purpose had been lost to time. Nothing called to me, nothing struck. Until it did. A photograph, larger than the others, but not much. It was displayed in a quiet corner, framed in simplicity, catching a thin shaft of light from a high window. I walked past it. Then, an imperceptible pull on my attention made me stop. I turned back. My curiosity, dormant until that moment, had awakened, and I leaned in. At first, it looked like a cloth, aged, yellowed, and delicate with time. Maybe a piece of tapestry, a relic from some long-forgotten chapel. But as my eyes adjusted to the faded tones, something revealed itself beneath the surface. A figure, barely visible, like a ghost on the verge of disappearing. A shadow, a memory, an imprint. The image of a man, his eyes closed, his face peaceful, but marked, wounded. His body bore signs of pain, as though it had been torn by something brutal. And yet there was a stillness to him, a calm that transcended his torment. It was this stunning, heartbreaking juxtaposition that held me. I didn't know what I was looking at, but I knew it wasn't ordinary. That was the first time I encountered the Shroud of Turin. I didn't know then that this linen cloth was one of the most studied, contested, and mysterious objects in human history, that it would take me through cathedrals and laboratories, through fires and faith, through legends and lenses and centuries of questions that remain unanswered to this day. I just knew it had changed something in me. It had stirred a question I didn't even know I had. The cloth itself is unremarkable in form, 14 feet long, 3.5 feet wide, woven in a herringbone pattern common in the ancient world. But on it, front and back, is the full-length image of a man, not drawn, not painted, not stitched, an imprint, a photographic negative, centuries before photography was ever conceived. His face shows bruising. His head, wounds consistent with thorns. His wrists and feet bear puncture marks. His side, a large gash. His back shows scourge wounds, over 100 of them, crossing and layered. And yet, his expression is serene. It's haunting. It's human. The cloth first enters recorded history in the year 1354. A French knight, Geoffrey de Charny, displays it in a small church in the town of Liry. Word spreads quickly, carried on the wind and whispered from village to village. Pilgrims arrive in droves, their devotion a powerful, tangible force. Some pray, some weep, some simply stare, their faces a mirror of the awe I had felt in that quiet museum. And from the very beginning, there is controversy. The Bishop of Troyes, Pierre d'Arcis, writes to the Pope denouncing the cloth as a fake. He claims an artist confessed to painting it, though no such confession was ever produced. The Church, cautious and divided, hesitates to take a firm stance. It neither declares the shroud authentic nor condemns it as a fraud. And yet, people keep coming. The faith of the common man proved more powerful than the doubts of the ecclesiastical elite. The cloth changes hands, eventually gifted to the House of Savoy, one of the most powerful dynasties in Europe. Over centuries, the shroud is moved from city to city, from chapel to palace, until it finds its long-term home in Turin in the 16th century. But before the 14th century, nothing, no records, no mention, over 1,000 years of silence. This silence became the foundation for doubt and the fuel for legend. Some believe the shroud is much older than 1354. They trace its story back to the ancient city of Edessa in modern-day Turkey. There, a cloth known as the Mandylion, or image of Edessa, was venerated as early as the 4th century. According to legend, The cloth bore the miraculous image of Jesus' face, not painted, but imprinted. The story tells of King Abgar, who is gravely ill, writing to Jesus and receiving a reply along with the cloth. He was healed. The relic was kept and guarded, seen as holy, untouchable. Eventually it made its way to Constantinople, the heart of the Byzantine Empire. And then, in 1204, the city fell to the Crusaders. Amid the plunder and chaos, the relic vanished. 150 years later, a mysterious linen cloth bearing the full image of a crucified man surfaces in France. Is it the same cloth? No one can prove it. But art historians point to something curious. Before the 6th century, depictions of Jesus varied widely, young, beardless, Roman-looking. But after the 6th century, suddenly Christ is consistently shown with long hair, a beard, a sorrowful expression, almost identical to the face on the shroud. Did artists begin painting what they had seen on the cloth, or did belief shape the image? No one knows. The shroud has endured more than time. It has survived fire. In 1532, while housed in the Sainte-Chapelle in Chambéry, a fire broke out. The reliquary containing the shroud melted. Molten silver poured onto the folded linen, burning through several layers of cloth. The damage was severe. The air would have been thick with the smell of scorched linen, the hiss and steam of water used to douse the flames. And yet, the image survived. The face remained untouched, and the holes were later patched by nuns from the Poor Clare order. Their repairs, done with reverent precision, would one day become a source of scientific controversy. The restored areas contained foreign threads, perhaps even cotton, introduced during the stitching. What was meant to preserve the cloth may have forever complicated our understanding of it. In 1898, everything changed again. An Italian photographer, Secondo Pia, was granted permission to photograph the shroud. He entered his darkroom, the faint smell of chemicals filling the air. He developed his glass negatives, watching as the pale image on the plate slowly emerged, and as it did, he nearly dropped it. The negative was a positive. The faint, barely visible image on the cloth suddenly became vivid, stark, lifelike. Every bruise, every wound, every line on the face became clear. It was no longer a stain on linen, it was a man. People across Europe gasped. Newspapers printed the image. The mystery deepened. Had the cloth been holding this secret all along? In 1978, the shroud was opened to the most exhaustive scientific study in its history. A team of 33 scientists, called STURP, the Shroud of Turin Research Project, was allowed to examine it for 5 days. They worked in a frenzy of focused intensity, using X-rays, spectroscopy, ultraviolet fluorescence, microchemical testing. They tested the blood, the threads, the image. Their conclusions were revolutionary and unexpected. The image was not made by pigment, dye, or paint. The coloration only affected the outermost surface of the fibers, no deeper than a few microns. The image contained three-dimensional spatial information. The blood was human, type AB. The wounds matched descriptions of Roman crucifixion. And yet, the method by which the image was created, unknown. No known technology could replicate it, not in the 14th century, not today. The scientific community, which had come to debunk a fraud, left with a question that defied all their expertise. But in 1988, hope for proof seemed to vanish. 3 independent labs, Oxford, Zurich, and Arizona, were selected to carbon date a sample of the cloth. The result, 1260 to 1390 AD, a medieval forgery, they said. Case closed. But others weren't so sure. The test had used a piece of the cloth taken from the corner, precisely the area most handled, most damaged, and most likely repaired after the fire. Later chemical analysis found that section contained cotton, unlike the rest of the linen. It had been touched, rewoven, altered. Was the test valid, or had it measured the repair, not the relic? New techniques, spectroscopy, mechanical strength testing, and fiber comparison began to suggest the cloth could indeed be older. Some pointed to pollen grains found on the shroud that only grew around Jerusalem. Others to the weave pattern, rare in medieval Europe, but common in ancient Middle East textiles. Science had not closed the case. It had opened more doors. Years after that first museum visit, I found myself in Turin. The shroud was on public display, a rare event. I waited for hours, shoulder to shoulder with others from all over the world. Pilgrims, tourists, doubters, seekers. Some carried rosaries, others carried notebooks, some held hands, others walked alone. A shared anticipation, a collective search for meaning, hung in the air. And when I finally stood before it, it was still. It was silent. It didn't move. It didn't glow. But it spoke, not in language, not in explanation, but in presence. I looked at the face of a man who had suffered, and I saw not just pain. I saw myself. I saw humanity, fragile, flawed, hoping, wounded, searching, and I felt something unexpected. Not conviction, but peace. The Shroud of Turin remains to this day unexplained. Is it the burial cloth of Christ? Is it a medieval masterpiece? Is it a miracle? There are no definitive answers. And maybe that's the point. Some mysteries are not given to be solved. They are given to be witnessed, to be questioned, to be felt. Because faith is not the absence of doubt. It's the courage to keep looking, even when we can't see clearly. The shroud may never speak in certainty, but in its silence, it continues to whisper, to believe, to wonder, to love, and perhaps to encounter the divine.